Hey, life groups. I hope you're having a good week. I hope so far in gathering together this week, you're having a good and meaningful time together. And I hope if you've been already connecting as a group for a while, whether you're a group that's been together a long time, or maybe some people still getting to know each other, that you're just building your relationships this fall and deepening your care and connection with and for one another, but also seeing this as a great community and space to grow in your faith and explore and grow in what it means to follow Jesus together. And we're excited to keep doing that today and this week. And this week in our message series, as we've continued through the making of a movement and the story of the early church in Acts, I shared in our message about an experience basically of the apostles and sort of first followers of Jesus finding themselves at odds with the religious leaders of the day as they were really wrestling with kind of discerning, the right side of history, as I described it, of discerning God's side of history. And we have some questions in our conversation starters and some passages highlighted that you can read through and reflect on. But ultimately what we see is this moment where the community discerns that if what God was up to through the early church, if it was just a sort of human intention and origin, it was likely to come to an end and be stamped out like any kind of similar movements before it. But if it was from God, it would not be able to be stopped. And friends, 2,000 years later, as we reflect on the community of the church today, and over 2 billion proclaiming Jesus followers in the world today, I want our faith to be inspired that the Jesus movement is God's side of history, that the Jesus movement is what God is up to in the world, and that we are invited in faith to continue participating in it together. And some of what that means as we look at these stories is that we keep building our lives on devotion to Jesus, that we keep leaning into and participating in stories of healing and release, that we make it all about him and not about us, and that we recognize that it involves sacrifice. And in these stories, we see some of the sacrifices Jesus' first followers were making. But all of that is grounded in the sacrifice Jesus has made for us through his life and death and resurrection. And so that's what this whole movement is built on. The vision of this passage is that Jesus is God's side of history, and Jesus' movement in the world will not be stopped. It will continue to expand and grow. Jesus promised that to us. And I invite you to lean into that conversation. Wrestle with your own questions, your own doubts, encourage each other with some of your own stories, lean into some of these passages to keep learning from them and growing together. And I hope you have a really meaningful and rich conversation. Enjoy.